Hey guys, what's up? It's Bret. It's Friday, so that means a new episode of Friday on the Turntable. Sorry about last week. I know I didn't post an episode, but if you didn't see my video I posted yesterday, I was out of town. I was in San Francisco and Los Angeles, so be sure to check out that video where I tell you some tales of my adventures. So be sure to check that one out. So today, my feature is on the great Sinead O'Connor and her second album, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got. Came out in 1990, March of 1990 to be exact. Before I get into that, let's talk about 1990. I'll show you some of the other albums that came out that year. A big one for me, for a lot of you people, was Depeche Mode's Violator. You can see a cassette version of that. I'll show you a few cassettes, some CDs, and a record. How about Slayer's Seasons in the Abyss? Remember seeing that on Headbangers Ball on MTV. Megadeth's Rust in Peace, 1990. How about Steve Vai's Passion and Warfare, 1990. I don't know if you guys remember that video for the audiences listening, which is a cool track. Steve Vai. And this one, which kind of ties into the album, how about World Party, Goodbye Jumbo. A great track, Put the Message in the Box. Another one was Way Down Now, which was a single as well. So that was 1990. Also some other great albums. Jane's Addiction's Ritual, De La Habitual was one of the biggest one that comes to mind. Queensryche Empire. The Church, Golden Afternoon Fix, another one I got sitting back here. If you saw from yesterday's video, that was one that I found at Amoeba in Hollywood. So, Sinead O'Connor, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got on Chrysalis Ensign label. You can see my copy here in the original shrink with the blurb sticker. It is a cutout, but what a fantastic album. Sinead O'Connor, Irish singer. This is, trying to think if this was the first time I had heard of her. You couldn't, watching MTV as a teenager, you couldn't not turn on MTV and not see the video for Nothing Compares to You, which, if you guys are unfamiliar with, was such a huge single. Every time you turn on MTV, that song was on. In fact, I remember them doing the best videos of the year in 1990, and I think Nothing Compares to You was #1. I'll have to check my VHS archives from when I used to sit there and record videos. That song was written by Prince, if you didn't know that. And he had a band back in, I think it was 85, 86, he put together from musicians from the band The Time and some musicians he worked with, and they were called The Family, and they were the first ones to record that song. But, you know, that it wasn't a very well-known song until Sinead made it a huge hit. Phenomenal vocal performance, phenomenal singer. I hate to say she's one of my favorite female singers because I don't like to categorize things between male and female like that. She's just one of my favorite singers, period. Just an incredible voice. Really misunderstood. A great songwriter. She's had her ups and downs as far as with things in the media, but her albums are always just consistently excellent. From her previous one, her debut, The Lion and the Cobra, Mandinga, that track, just really great. Troy. So this album, as I said, came out in March 1990. It was her second one, and it was produced by Nellie Hooper, who produced the debut album of Bjork, which was called Debut, Massive Attack's first album, Soul to Soul, also worked with U2, Smashing Pumpkins. And this album had just a wide array of musicians on it, like, as I mentioned before, Carl Wallinger from World Party did some work on this album. Andy Rourke, the bass player of the Smiths, both him and the drummer went on to work with Sinead right after the Smiths dissolved, but Andy Rourke played some bass on this album. And who else? Steve Wickham, who played the violin parts on U2's Sunday Bloody Sunday, as amongst many other bands, including the Waterboys. He plays on this album. Jaw Wobble plays on it. And this thing sold 7 million copies worldwide, predominantly because of that, because of Nothing Compares to You, which opened up side 2. This album had 4 singles on it. The first one came out before the album did, which was Jump in the River. And then Three Babies was a single. The Emperor's New Clothes. and Nothing Compares to You, of course. And what else was I going to say about that? Every track on this is excellent. I'll pull out the sleeve here, my copy. Liner notes on that one. And there's the label on this one. Excellent album from beginning to end. My favorite song on this one, my absolute favorite song on this one, is the closing song on side 1, Black Boys on Mopeds, which is a song that I've actually personally covered and performed. It's just such a phenomenal, phenomenal song. And the track, The Last Day of Our Acquaintance, is kind of this dissolution of a marriage, where the lyrics go from, you know, her recalling being with, you know, if you take it from being written in first person, her sitting next to her husband on an airplane, and she says how he always used to hold her hand when the plane took off, to now they're in a lawyer's office and they can't even speak to one another. So it's just a really intensely poetically depressing song, and it starts off just acoustic until it just builds into this climax and the drums kick in, and it's just a glorious track. Let's see here what else I wanted to say. Other notable tracks: I Am Stretched on Your Grave, which is a traditional Irish poem, which was set to music, and you know, there's some confusion on I think on my part as to the author of it, because in the credits it actually credits Sinead O'Connor's grandfather for the lyrics. So I don't know if there's parts from the old song or the poem and parts that he wrote. But Dead Can Dance actually did a version of that track on their 1993 album Toward the Within, and that's also a really spectacular version as well. Three Babies is a great track, and Jump in the River. And the closing track, which is the title track, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got, is an a cappella vocal performance. And if you're familiar with Sinead's voice, as I mentioned earlier, it's just really, really great. And yeah, so in 2009, I don't have it, but there was a reissue of this album on CD that had a bonus track that compiled a few of the remixes, a few live tracks, and the B-sides to the singles. There's one song I haven't been able to track down when it was from, but it has the same feel to me as this era Sinead O'Connor, and it was on a compilation album called She Who Dwells, but it's a track called Big Bunch of Junkie Lies. And if you can seek out that track, it's just a really phenomenal one. I know it doesn't have anything to do with this, and I don't quite know what year that was written in, but it does have some sentiment with Black Boys on Mopeds and some of the other tracks. It just feels harmonious with those. Live, I've never gotten to see Sinead O'Connor. Would love to see her, because I do have this DVD, and this is called Good Night, Thank You, You've Been a Lovely Audience, live in Dublin. And you know, she's done these retirements where she said it was going to be her last show, last album, and that wasn't quite true. But this came out in 2003, and it has some of the tracks from this album. It ends with The Last Day of Our Acquaintance, and it has I Am Stretched on Your Grave, Nothing Compares to You. Really good live performance here. You can see that. Good Night, Thank You, You've Been a Lovely Audience. So definitely seek that one out. It's really good. I picked that up for really cheap. I think it was only a couple dollars. Oh, and I'll show you just as a little side note here. So you saw, there's vinyl. There's this compact disc, ye old cassette. Very cool. So there's the trifecta of I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got. I also wanted to just also say that, in one of the bonus tracks on the 2009 reissue of this album is a version of Sinead doing Silent Night, which is a must listen. So last year she put out a new album, How About I Be Me and You Be You. Highly recommended. I've turned several people onto this album because it's really excellent. The track The Wolf Is Getting Married. And then Queen of Denmark is a cover song, which is just insanely great. John Grant from a band called The Czars was the original artist, but Sinead, if you've heard any of her cover songs, they're so her own that you just assume that she wrote them. Just, I mean, for example, Nothing Compares to You. They're just so, she sings them just from the heart, and it's just mesmerizing. And the Queen of Denmark is another one like that. Yeah, so that's the latest one. How About I Be Me and You Be You, which is a killer title as well. And that came out in 2012, so definitely seek that one out. All right, let's see if I didn't forget anything here. Yeah, I think that's about it. So I'm not sure how easy this is to find on vinyl. I found my copy several years ago. I never run across it. And this seems to be the last one. The first one and the second one are usually the only ones I've ever seen on vinyl, except for the new one. So I don't know how accessible it is, but CD copies of this are very traceable. They often are under a couple dollars. So anyway, Sinead O'Connor, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got, 1990, this week's Friday on the Turntable. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.